I'm Michelle Beadle. Game 3 at the top of the hour. But right now, we are joined by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's just get right to it. 5th year as commissioner, 4th year with this matchup here. So let me ask you, I know you get asked this a lot about the balance between the two best teams versus some parity in the league. Where do you stand?
Well, begin with LeBron. So, as you said, this is the 4th year in a row in the finals. I looked this up. He's had 59 different teammates.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
Over those 4 years, over his time in the finals, over all of his 8 finals, he's had 2 coaches, 2 GMs over the last 4 years. So in terms of creating more parity, short of ankle weights or something, I don't know. I mean, honestly, if you have one guy with that many different teammates who can have the success he's having, I think we should be celebrating the excellence. And in the West, look, Houston took them to Game 7, lost one of their top players, obviously, in Chris Paul. They were built to play this team, and they lost, but I think we should be celebrating excellence there as well. And in terms of the system, you have a team that was largely built through the draft. Of course, through a bit of a fluke in the cap, they were able to add Kevin Durant. But even this notion of parity, even if Kevin hadn't been able to go there, had he stayed at the Thunder or gone to another team, so then you clearly would have had another excellent team, but that's not going to create league-wide parity. So, I mean, these guys should speak to it, but at the end of the day, there's a certain caliber of player, and we've seen this throughout our history, that is able to take a team to another level. And I think even if you set out these guys and said, here are the 450 players in the league, create more parity. It's not an easy thing to do because some players, like LeBron, are that good that, essentially, as I've said, you can put almost any cast of players around them. They're going to take their team pretty much to the conference finals and maybe the finals.
Here we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. LeBron can be on 26 other teams and still be here. But speaking of LeBron, yesterday he came out and said neither team would visit the White House if they won a championship, and Steph agreed. What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction, not to what they said, but that's where we find ourselves here, is sadness, frankly, a bit of resignation, you know. But I don't think it should take away from the fact that these players in our league, our coaches, are speaking out on issues that are important to them and important to society. I encourage them to continue to do that. And on top of that, maybe even more importantly, look at the things they're doing in their communities. We just saw it out in Oakland. We're seeing it here in Cleveland. These players, these teams are actively engaged in their community, conducting conversation with police officers, young people of color, doing things like dedicating boys and girls clubs. So I think that's the most we could ask for.
Adam, as the commissioner, I think you've done a terrific job of allowing the players to feel like they were thought partners more so than boss versus worker. Can you talk about that dynamic in our league?
Well, you guys know it from playing in the league. It's a partnership, and there's a strong players association. I have a great relationship with Michelle Roberts. I mean, it's contentious at times, but it's one based on respect. I think we have honest and direct conversations with each other. I think that's what we encourage when we're behind closed doors. People feel comfortable saying what's on their mind, and seemingly together we're able to continue building this league. But I'd say most importantly, it's about respect, and it's not just the league office. I'm incredibly appreciative of the owners in this league, that they're willing to engage in those same kinds of conversations. And again, working with the union and the players, Chris Paul leading the Players Association, LeBron's been very involved, Carmelo, you know, Chris Paul, this group. I mean, they're an incredible group of young men, and I think that's what has so much to do with where we are today.
Adam, I think you've done a tremendous job with the players and closing that gap with the relationship, something we've always talked about since I was in the league. And the league has grown tremendously.
We sat across from each other in a few bargaining sessions. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we definitely have. But you've grown the league since you've been commissioner to numbers that are just didn't think they'll get there, especially since I first started. And now we have this sports betting. Where do you see the league moving forward as far as the sports betting?
Yeah, you know, in some ways it's almost, if you look what's been happening over the last 10 years or so, it's almost the sort of logical outgrowth of all this focus on analytics and fantasy. And so here we are, the next step is actual betting. And again, it wasn't something necessarily in our control. The Supreme Court found the current law unconstitutional. But to me, it's ultimately going to be better, because rather than having it be in the shadows, what we're seeing now, largely a gray area of the law, offshore betting on the internet, it's now going to be legal, regulated, transparent. Teams can monitor the data, and ultimately it's a positive thing. I mean, I think we have to be careful. There could be problem gamblers. We have to make sure that in terms of disclosure, things are all done in the best possible way so everybody has equal access to information. But ultimately, I think it's positive, it's engagement, and I think that making things legal and doing it in a controlled you know, sunlight is the greatest disinfectant, as they said, and I think we know it goes on in a massive amount already, so this will be better for everyone.
Adam, I know you're busy. We love having you up here. You're always welcome.
Thank you.
The whole game, whatever you want next time. It doesn't matter.
Thanks for having me.